Okay, so my name is Mpumelelo Mcata, and I play the guitar mostly, and I also am interested in like video art, film, things like this, basically mixing media and stuff. That's what I do, and I play the guitar in a couple of bands. First band I started was a band called BLK. So I guess you could call that the main band, as it's still going. And they have another band really love called Motel Mari, which is a bit more of a electronic exercise with modular synths and stuff like that. Yeah. So that's what I do. That's who I am, and these are some of the tools I use in my work. I have a guitar. As a guitar player, it's important. I have two guitars. But this is the main one. So it's this SG, Gibson SG, just a classic thing. I think American make, yeah. Cool, got that one in the early 2000s. Apparently, yeah. So much I can say about that, sounds great. then there's an amp here. Usually I'm going into a Fender, but didn't have that today. But sometimes I also go into this Marshall, because Andrei owns this Marshall, and yeah, there's a whole thing with gear, right? Between us, back and forth, which brings us to the Line6. There used to be two Line6s. There used to be more Line6s, but my Line6 parts and Andrei's Line6 parts were falling apart, and so we married them into this Frankenstein kind of Line6. So the green now really like has multiple layers of meaning. So yeah, that's it. So this is a really important thing for all the bands I'm in, on all the work, also the scoring work for any film or ads and stuff like that. Like, it just has so much scope and room to do stuff. I mean, most people who play the guitar, because we were trying to get this to go into the album. So, and then, yeah, I think we were dropping this off or picking it up or something.
Yeah, it was around the time of the second BLK album that you recorded.
Yeah, which took years.
So what was your introduction to the Line6?
I mean, I think for me the introduction to Line6 would have been this particular pedal. Would have been we went over to the States with the Blackjacks. And just it's a long, crazy story, the whole Blackjacks goes to the States situation, but to cut to it, we eventually, in our time there, got a record deal, so a couple of months in. And then we had to, then for this, we had to record an album, and we got a producer in to come help us, somebody whom we had met at the shows. Some of the shows we were doing in New York, he used to come to the shows, he liked what we were doing, which was mutual, respect was mutual. He's also a musician, so Brendan Curtis, his name is Brendan Curtis, he was in the Secret Machines, and he does a lot of production kind of work, helping other bands, Interpol and so on and so forth. And then he came to help us record the album, and he brought some pedals of his own and stuff like that to Bloomington, Indiana, which is like a really small town where Secretly Canadian, the record label we had signed to, is based, and they had their distribution warehouse there. And we went into a studio called Russian Recordings with a homie called Mike Bredavsky. And we set up for it was going to be like a month or something, which was like a dream for me, because I always felt recording an album should be like, you should be like going to a mountain, you know. So there we were in Bloomington, Indiana, in the snow, first time in our lives in the snow, in a small town, kind of like Grahamstown for those who know, you know, South African people. But it's just like a university town. That's the only thing kind of going there. And then the Secretly Canadian and stuff. So in his pedals, in Brendan's pedals, there was this thing, the green Mamba, the Line6. And we were switching pedals around for different songs and experimenting with that. We weren't yet that big into pedals as a band, you know. We had the basics, sort of like a distortion. You gotta have a distortion, you gotta have some kind of delay, you know, maybe a chorus, which I hated, but Linda had a chorus. It works for him for the kind of playing that he was doing. But the band was focused more on that kind of statistical approach of like, the sound was one thing, but like the playing was key, you know. It was like our focus was like, if you want to you play the arpeggio, you know what I mean? There's no pedals gonna help you, and because we're moving like a bit of a hurricane, you know, drumming, you know, Tsabang, it's awesome drummer, had Molefe on the bass. It was like, you know, Mr. Africa's killing it. So it was all about like the relationship between each other as we were growing as musicians and playing, you know, and the youth, and it's like trying to get it all out, you know. So coming into the studio and suddenly meeting these pedals, it was like, whoa, okay, this is a whole nother universe. And it's taken this long, over 10 years for me to actually have like come to terms with the possibilities there in the pedals, you know, as a compositional tool, you know. So the stuff I was messing around with now earlier is like listening to where the pedals want to go, finding music within, you know, and that's only started happening now. So we eventually did our second album, long story short, 10 years after the first one. But as I was saying to you earlier, the second album just felt like it was balancing out that first album, you know. So it's like a kind of revenge, a kind of the good twin or the bad twin. There's a kind of like a symbiotic kind of relationship between those two, which needed to happen as a kind of catharsis, you know, for this long haul between the first and the second. And there's kind of beautiful way in which they speak to each other, you know. So that being said and that being done, now, at least I do, you know, I think we all do in the band, but I definitely do, to not speak for the guys, feel free, feel absolutely free, and that has allowed me to like lean into, you know, what the Line6 can do, what these pedals can do. And I feel like the next movement for myself musically, somewhere I didn't expect for myself if you had asked me when I started this journey with the guitar, but I feel like it's going to be somewhere in these pedals. There's something kind of exciting that I'm feeling is possible down here.
Mm.
Yeah.
And what is your like sort of primary usage of the Line6, like in your music and set? Is it do you use it as segues, or is there elements of it for like sonic experimentation, or is there, when you were writing the second album and the first album, were there specific parts that you used
Yeah,
to do at times,
yeah,
or was
yeah.
is that the morphing of it? How it sort of morphed in your career between albums?
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly coming in as like segues in the live set and on the second album, yeah, and embellishments. Um, so yeah, segues and embellishments, enhancing things. You know, I seldom have it on. Sort of like, because there was a moment where I tried that, to have it on throughout the set, sort of like as a delay on the guitar, you know. But I think the strength, so now I use another pedal for that, and I think the strength of the Line6 is to kind of like come in hard, doing like something really distinct and clear, you know. And so that's why embellishments and segues. But as I'm saying now, I think I've come to a point where I'm like, maybe as a compositional tool, could be really interesting going forward. Yeah.
Do you think, focusing on the Line6, but pedals in general, do you think they in some ways assist you, or do they enhance sort of utilizing your instrument and accessing sort of the kind of musical lineage that you're part of in some way? Do they allow you to access it in a different way? Do you think it assists? Do you think it's all in the playing, all in the hands, or do you think these can? Because one thing is we all, me and you, use the Line6. One thing about sharing the Line6 is that you get it back with different settings all the time.
Yeah.
You get it back
5 minutes before the next show.
Yeah, that you realize that your actual then you realize your settings aren't there anymore.
Yeah, and you get to know the people that it passes through, because it passes through you, then it passes through Gabby, and then it's like 5 minutes before the show, and you're like, what were they doing with this sound? Like, how is that even possible? Like, how could that have worked in any real life musical situation? And that's interesting. Then sometimes you leave it on, and you're like, I'll see where I can drop that ridiculousness in.
Because there is like an element of, well, the settings aren't going to ever be the same. Like between between when it changes hands, you're going to maybe, it might be a little bit different at every single time. There's no set sort of thing when it comes to.
Yeah, I mean, I think then it is for some people it enhances their what they're doing, you know. Sure, but for me, I feel it's taken this long because that's the journey I had to go on, you know. So the advice I would give, if somebody was asking me about my story and my journey and how I see this, which is not the absolute, of course, I feel I think it's better to take time with pedals.
How it works with them in some way?
Yeah, I mean, so I always have this reverse thing, which is like so the reverse is just and without a really big. So if I'm looking for like slower meditation, emotional content, kind of like in between stuff, you know, breakdowns, it's really nice. Then there's the kind of like wild delay, kind of like, you know, that's just like taking up space. Some birds, you know. It's like bringing in those birds, you know. So I always need that there, just for like embellishments, you know, in between songs. Or during songs, I mean. And then in between songs, sometimes maybe we land on something. It's like last note of the song is like a,
you know, and I know it's a hard stop. And, you know, in our shows, you know, it gets a bit chaotic, it's wild, it's rock and roll, people get tired, drumsticks get dropped, people trip over monitors, fall off the stage, anything can happen. So on a hard stop like that, sometimes it's nice to buy time for us, you know, take a swig of water, beer, whatever. Everybody's sweating. So I always have this kind of infinite thing. Which allows you to go like, take a piss, come back, you know, not leave the stage like Fela, but it's kind of like, it's a gap and it holds the tension. And I really love that. So those are the three main purposes. And then obviously they can all be adjusted. So if you go in, you can play around, you know, with each one of those, which is really exciting. It's a really fantastic thing. And then that's basically the Line6. And you have all these other types of distortion here, types of delay here. So these are 3 types, but then you have all these other ones here. So it could be any, there's like, you know, if you want to get like super creative, there's like ping pong, you know. But the delay is really high there. Why is the ping pong dead? Okay, see, rock and roll, the ping pong's dead. But then you got dynamic, you know, digital with mod, analog with mod. Another one I use a lot sometimes is this sweep thing. I just love that.
In what sort of context would you sometimes use it in?
So like you have like climactic parts of songs. So suddenly coming out of
Which song is that?
It's a song called Mpumelelo from the infamous second album, Abantu Before Humans, second album of Blackjacks. So yeah, there's that, and then that's the Line6, and then there's how these other pedals kind of work in conjunction. So coming into the Line6 as kind of like the last or second last stop in the chain. All of these go into the Line6 and come out of there. The wah pedals at the end because it allows me to kind of like play with. So for example, if I go back to that infinity, you know, so the wah just allows you to sort of dial down the highs, dial them back in, and so it's giving you a bit of play on a flat signal. So that's why the wah is right at the end. I don't use it, I guess, as most people would traditionally use a wah. I use it like that. And so yeah, then the Line6 is second last. Then you have all these other pedals. Another one I really like is this carbon copy delay. This is distortion, of course. This is octave. So on a really subtle setting, but what it's really doing is, if you take out the dry, it's like basically You can go as low as you want. Turns the guitar into a bass, kind of like a four-string sound, you know. It's nice. Then you can go as high as you want. Weird, but if you blend them, then you get that kind of, I like the subtle blend, you know, bringing a bit of the drive. So that's what I have there then. That's what that does. So I leave it in as a kind of general tone for the guitar. Adds a bit of color. Then you have distortion, which is distortion. So then you have this carbon copy, which I really like.
Just a general slapback delay.
Yeah, which I nicked off Tsepan because he was using it for snare at some point, and we had a pedal swap, and then, you know, I really kind of started to get into it. I started to discover other things, you know, getting wild, and how it works with the guitar. It's really quite beautiful. So yeah, he uses I think a DD3. He was using a DD3 at the time on vocals as well, which we still do. Boss pedals on vocals, it's beautiful. Okay, so this is like, you know, it's just, I usually start out kind of here.
Almost feels like, I sometimes feel like when I look at your, if you had to not have all the interesting stuff, that would be the end of your chain. If you had to like bare bones it, because it's the last like sort of, it's the actual delay. It's the delay that's being used as the delay in many senses. And then after that, things start getting a bit more interesting. Yeah,
I mean, this is bare bones up to there. You know. I mean, this could also go, it doesn't have to be there, so it'd be like tuner, distortion, delay, or straight into the amp. So then you have this, which is giving us a bit of that, you know.
Do you want to lift up the wow?
Yeah. So it's giving us that, you know, leftovers. And then they get crazy. Those are the repeats, and then I like to take them all the way to infinity, right? And then once they're there, you can kind of move the delay aspect around. And you can go anywhere with this. So I like to use this as a soloing tool as well. It's really exciting. And then I have the synth pedal after it. It's like a mini synth pedal from where. And you turn that on, and then it takes that infinite signal as a key, as a note on a keyboard going into the synth pedal. And then you get different shit, right? So it arpeggiates, it does different things. So now it's reading that note and moving around, so you can change the speed, you know, or you can change to a different type of arpeggio.
So you keep that running, and
Yeah. And then you have the organ afterwards, which can give a different kind of color, you know. So if I bring in the organ sound, you know, you hear that kind of widening, you know. Then you can bring in the line 6 in any way. You can reverse it. Or you can do that crazy delay thing. Just into space, you know. Or you can add the other infinity and see what happens, which is the really mad decision. And in a situation like that, that's where the wah pedal comes into its own for that shock, you know. Because it gives the impression of control.
yeah.
So yeah, and that's basically the pedal setup. Other than that, I'm just, you know, running through the guitar, playing songs, you know, yeah, just recently got really excited about getting into the pedals as a compositional tool as opposed to just the guitar. So yeah.
Nice.